Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It's Jay Ayyo. So we're gonna get right into it. I hope you all had an awesome week and having an awesome weekend. So basically, we are going to be talking about the Cuban doctors in Jamaica. Now, for most of you who don't know, Cuba has been a pillar for the Caribbean in providing doctors, or rather training for different Caribbean islands. I did kind of preface this some time ago in one of my previous videos, where bottom line is that to go to the States, Canada, and UK, it can be a bit expensive. Not bit, it is expensive. And so going to Cuba tends to be affordable that, certain governments decide to foot the bill on in sending their students to go to Cuba and then come back and provide that training that they got overseas. Now, the bottom line is that when Cuban doctors go to the Caribbean, whether that's Jamaica, Guyana, Belize, Barbados, St. Vincent and Grenadines, St. Lucia, there are usually very strict rules that medical doctors have to follow from the Cuban government. It was an issue by and large where the Jamaican authorities government was saying like, oh, we want to get a response on this matter, right? Now the matter was that the doctors in Jamaica from Cuba, they didn't have control of their passports, which is kind of like a big breach with the passport immigration citizenship authority in Jamaica. Because if you have a passport, you should have the sole custody of that passport. Also, Cuban doctors in Jamaica were not getting paid properly is what I would describe it. The reason this was happening, it does not seem to be sure, but from what the ministry or the said ministry in charge of the Cuban doctors, they were saying, representatives from that ministry were saying that they basically tried to reach out to the Cuban authorities to say, let's see how we can work on this. Now, in diplomacy, a specific term that we call it. It could be what we call passive communication, which is where you take indirect approaches or subliminal approaches to communicate without being direct. Now, Jamaica has to follow certain labor laws, and as it is pertained with certain labor laws, you have to adhere to it. So even if you're from Haiti or Cuba, you have to adhere to the respective countries that you're working in labor law. Because if you don't, you more or less fall afoul and you are technically in breach. So no government wants to do that. The primary, though those are the two primary issues, the United States has been pressuring Caribbean countries like Jamaica, like Barbados, like Guyana to limit, or rather cancel, the relationship of that training program that Cuba has, because Cuba is renowned for its medical practice and its ability to train a lot of medical students. And so it is very interesting to see what is happening at the end of the day. Now, the United States has always said that they've had concerns about the program in terms of the denial of access to travel documents and payment matters. And so really it just boils down to human rights issues. Human rights issues tend to be a big thing at the end of the day. What the only thing that the authorities in Jamaica could do was provide what we call respectful engagement and quiet diplomacy. Now, there would have been, some commencement in discussions on what that would look like in terms of, okay, we've agreed that we want your doctors to, but for your doctors to come here, we want to make sure that they have their own passports, they're getting their own money. Now, what the Jamaican government has said at the end of the day is that for the continuation of the program, they wanted to make some adjustments, right? Reason being, they knew that certain things weren't being done collectively. Because if you have fellow doctors, we're all being paid the same, but a Cuban doctor is being paid less, it's going to cause problems, it's going to cause rift, and it's going to cause concerns. So even though the Cuban government has not provided a lot of response at the end of the day, the reality is that Jamaica has always tried to find a balance in preserving the relationship with Cuba at great lengths, because their relationship, the Jamaican relationship and the Cuban relationship, goes way back. But at the end of the day, it's a very tricky situation because the United States is involved, and Jamaica has to kind of be a bit tactful on how it engages with Cuba, right? And Cuba is in a very sensitive position because the US is trying to do certain things to get what they want. So Jamaica's position, as it can be seen, is that they value the contribution, they respect the Cuban people, and they're looking to create incorporation. Now, whether the program will continue or not, that will be determined on the international conventions. But pretty much somebody's upset that the Caribbean islands are using the Cuban um, medical program to benefit themselves. And so they're using the guise of international conventions are being breached when it's reality of perspective. So what I would say at the end of the day, we are in a very tricky situation globally, internationally, and I think countries have had to amp up their diplomacy and tact on how they resolve situations and get the main objectives and respective goals that the country wants. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any questions or comments, do let me know.